On Valentine's night, she saved a dying stranger in her ambulance, completely unaware he was a ruthless underworld dragon king, who would soon brand her like property, hunt her fiancé for sport, and force her into a dark, toxic bond she could never escape. It was supposed to be the perfect Valentine's night. Lydia, a dedicated trauma nurse, was counting down the minutes until her shift ended. She was clutching her phone, smiling at the sweet text messages from her fiancé, Jason. They had plans, a romantic dinner, roses, chocolates, the typical fairy tale. But the universe had other plans. Through the pouring rain, Lydia's ambulance screeched to a halt. A man was lying in the middle of the road, practically swimming in a pool of his own blood. As a nurse, Lydia didn't hesitate. She dragged his massive, heavy body into the back of the vehicle. But the moment she began to work on him, the entire atmosphere shifted. The heart monitors didn't just glitch, they completely died. The backup generators went dead silent. The air in the cabin grew thick, smelling of copper, ozone, and pure, raw power. The man's wounds were deep enough to show bone, yet his dark eyes snapped open, locking onto Lydia with predatory focus. There was no pain in his eyes, only a terrifying, cold amusement. He whispered, "I don't bite." Usually, before Lydia could scream, the ambulance was violently boxed in by 5 armored black SUVs. Heavily armed men in tactical gear poured out, but they didn't open fire. Instead, they dropped to their knees on the wet asphalt, bowing their heads in absolute terror and respect. They roared in unison, "My king!" Lydia's blood ran cold. She looked down at the man on the gurney. As his torn shirt fell away, she saw a magnificent, glowing dragon tattoo curling around his chest. The chief of the guards stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Lydia as he declared, "You have just laid hands on Soren Moretti, the sovereign of the underworld, the dragon king of the Moretti Syndicate." Panic seized her. In their world, humans did not survive encounters with the supernatural syndicate. Lydia tried to scramble out of the back doors, but Soren caught her with one hand. His grip was like a vice made of iron. He snatched her phone, his eyes scanning the sweet messages from Jason. A dark, mocking laugh rumbled in his chest. "Roses and chocolate, pathetic," Soren sneered, leaning in close enough for his breath to brush her neck. "No wonder you're trembling so hard, you smell sweet, like an untouched flower." Lydia spat curses at him, calling him a psycho. In response, Soren dragged her to the very edge of the hospital rooftop, holding her suspended over a 100-foot drop with a single hand. "I can let go, little nurse, just say the word." But as Lydia sobbed, clawing at his arm, something ancient and powerful sparked between them. Soren's chest flared with golden light. His dragon core, the very source of his god-like power, was beating in perfect, rhythmic synchronization with Lydia's terrified heart. He froze. In that moment of near death, the ultimate truth was revealed. This fragile human girl wasn't just a witness, she was his fated mate. The only medicine that could cure his decaying soul. Suddenly, his second-in-command stepped up, his face expressionless as he said, "My king, according to the ancient blood covenant, any outsider who sees your true form must be executed immediately, no exceptions." Lydia fell to her knees, begging for her life, promising to forget everything. Soren looked down at her. His eyes swirled with a dangerous mix of possessiveness and cold calculation. He slowly lifted her by her chin and growled, "You want to live? Then you belong to me now. Take my name, abandon your mortal fiancé, and accept the bond. Or, I can send Jason to God tonight. What is your choice, Lydia?" When Lydia woke up, the sterile smell of the hospital was gone. She was lying in a silk-sheeted bed in a fortress that looked like a Gothic palace. Soren stood by the window, his silhouette radiating pure, dark authority. He didn't ask her how she felt. He simply laid down the law of his kingdom. "You have 7 days, Soren said, his voice smooth but unyielding. 7 days to fall in love with me before our binding ceremony. The countdown starts now." Lydia scoffed, her eyes burning with defiance. "You can kidnap me, you can lock me up, but you can't force my heart to beat for a monster." Soren didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped closer, his fingers tracing her jawline with a terrifying gentleness. "We'll see about that, my queen." Lydia's only thought was escape. She played along, pretending to cooperate. Soren bought her roomfuls of exquisite silk gowns and diamond jewelry, demanding she choose a wedding dress for the 7th night. Lydia threw a priceless white lace gown onto the floor. Looking him dead in the eye as she said, "I'd rather wear a body bag." Soren's eyes turned dangerously dark. He leaned down, his lips almost brushing her ear. That can be arranged, but I highly prefer you in white. Lydia realized she had to be smart. She pretended to agree to try on one last dress, using the opportunity to slip out of the dressing room and run into the labyrinthine gardens of the estate. But she didn't know the territory. Within minutes, she was lost. And in the dark corners of the Moretti estate, predators were always watching. 3 low-ranking syndicate soldiers stepped out of the shadows, their eyes scanning Lydia's exposed shoulders with disgusting hunger. Well, look at this little lost lamb, the leader sneered, ignoring his companion's warning that she belonged to the king. She's just a human toy, the king will get bored of her in a week. Before she hits her expiration date, why don't we have some fun? He lunged at her. Lydia fought with everything she had, biting and clawing, but she was entirely outmatched. They pinned her to the stone floor, laughing at her tears. Suddenly, a voice like cracking ice echoed through the garden. Did I give you permission to touch her? Soren stood there, surrounded by a terrifying shadow aura. The temperature in the garden dropped to freezing. The soldiers instantly lost all their bravado, dropping to their knees, trembling so hard their teeth chattered. Soren didn't even look at them. He slowly drew a matte black pistol from his coat, pointing it directly at the leader's forehead. If you even breathe in her direction again, you'll eat this bullet. With a single loud bang, the leader collapsed. Soren walked over to Lydia, effortlessly lifting her into his arms. He looked at the remaining guards, his voice booming like thunder as he announced, "From this moment on, anyone who touches her dies. She belongs to me." Back in her chamber, Lydia tried to push him away, her voice shaking with adrenaline and rage. "Don't touch me, I'm just a toy to you, aren't I? A doll to play with until you get bored." Soren pressed her down onto the bed, his body heat overwhelming her. "You're wrong, Lydia, you are my queen, and I never break what is mine." He leaned down, his lips hovering over hers. "On our wedding night, you'll be the one begging me to touch you." But Lydia's spirit wasn't broken. On the 3rd night, during a massive thunderstorm, she managed to steal a guard's keycard and slip through the security gates. Rain soaked her to the bone as she ran down the mountain road, her lungs burning. She had managed to keep her burner phone. With shaking fingers, she dialed the only number she knew by heart. "Jason, please, pick up. They kidnapped me. I'm at the highway intersection. Help me." 10 minutes later, headlights pierced the darkness. A car pulled up, and the door swung open. It was Jason. Lydia wept with joy, throwing herself into his arms, believing her nightmare was finally over. "You're safe now, baby," Jason said softly, handing her a bottle of water. "Drink this. Calm down." Lydia drank it greedily. She looked at her fiancé, feeling a wave of intense gratitude. But within seconds, her head began to spin. Her vision blurred and her limbs felt heavy as lead. She looked at Jason, her voice slurring, "Jason, what did you put in the water?" Jason's warm, loving smile slowly faded into a cold, transactional sneer. "I'm sorry, Lydia, but some opportunities only come once in a lifetime." When Lydia woke up, she was strapped to a bed in a penthouse suite of a luxury casino. She tried to move, but her hands were chained. The door opened and Jason walked in, followed by a bloated, middle-aged casino tycoon named Vincent. Lydia begged Jason to untie her, but Jason wouldn't even look her in the eye. "Don't look at me like that, Lydia," Jason said, his voice devoid of any guilt. "Do you know how much debt I have? Vincent here offered me 50% of this casino's monthly profits. All I had to do was hand you over. You should be happy. You're finally worth something." Lydia's heart didn't just break, it shattered into microscopic pieces. The man she had loved, the man she had sacrificed her weekends to support, had sold her like a piece of meat. Vincent walked over to the bed, a disgusting grin on his face. "Your boyfriend was smart, sweetie. Now, let's see what 50% of my casino actually bought me." Lydia screamed, thrashing against her chains as Vincent leaned over her. She closed her eyes, preparing for the worst. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the room. The heavy reinforced steel doors of the penthouse didn't just open, they were blown off their hinges, flying across the room and crushing Vincent's guards against the wall. Through the smoke, Soren stepped into the room. He didn't look like a man. He looked like an angry god of vengeance. His eyes glowed with a terrifying golden light, and the dragon tattoo on his chest was pulsing with pure, violent energy. Vincent scrambled backward, his face pale as paper. "Who the hell are you? Do you know who I am? The Vincent family runs this city." Soren's lead guard stepped forward, letting out a dark chuckle. Open your eyes, you fool. You are looking at Soren Moretti, the king of the underworld. Your entire family begs us for the permission to breathe. Vincent instantly fell to his knees, begging for mercy. Soren didn't say a word. He looked at Lydia's chained hands, and his jaw clenched. Cut off his limbs, Soren commanded, his voice dead and cold, and throw him to the wolves in the outer forest. The room was cleared, but the danger was far from over. The drug Jason had slipped into Lydia's water wasn't just a sedative, it was a highly potent aphrodisiac, designed to strip her of her willpower. Now, the sedative was wearing off, and the poison was taking complete control of her body. Lydia's skin was flushed red, her breath coming in shallow, desperate gasps. Her mind was a chaotic haze of heat and desire. She looked at Soren, his powerful frame, his dark, commanding presence, and her survival instincts were completely drowned out by the drug. She reached out, her fingers wrapping around his lapel, pulling him down as she whispered, "Soren, please. I'm so hot. It burns." Soren's body went completely rigid. He had conquered armies, survived assassination attempts, and ruled the underworld with an iron fist. But this fragile, drugged woman holding onto him was testing his limits like nothing before. He tried to pull her hands away, his voice deep and raspy. "Lydia, look at me. You are drugged. You don't know what you're asking for." Lydia looked into his eyes, her gaze wild and desperate. She pulled herself up, her lips almost touching his. "I don't care. Kiss me until I forget his name. Please." Soren's eyes darkened, the dragon within him roaring in absolute dominance. He grabbed her chin, his grip possessive, his voice dark and dangerous. "You want to forget," Soren whispered, his breath hot against her lips. "No, my sweet girl. I won't make you forget your name. But by the time I am done with you, you will be screaming my name until you lose your voice." Lydia didn't pull back. She tilted her head up, her eyes flashing with a sudden, intoxicating challenge, and whispered, "Prove it." Soren let out a low growl, and slammed his lips onto hers, claiming her with a primitive, untamed hunger. The contract was sealed. The line was crossed. But as the Dragon King finally claims his fated mate, a dark secret from their past is waiting in the shadows. Why did Soren's Dragon Core only react to Lydia? And what will happen when Jason returns with a new, terrifying ally to take back what he sold? Subscribe now, because the real hunt is about to begin.